You're standing in line. Nothing is happening. 10 seconds pass and it already feels unbearable. Your hand reaches for your phone before you even decide to move it. That itch under your skin is not weakness. It is one of the oldest alarm systems your brain owns, and it was never built to make you comfortable. It was built to make you move. Boredom feels like nothing, but it is not nothing. It is a signal, as sharp as hunger or thirst, and for most of human history, it kept people alive. Picture a small group of early humans 100,000 years ago. Resources are scattered. Threats are everywhere. In that world, an organism that could sit still and feel fine doing it was an organism in danger. Stillness meant missed water sources, missed warnings. So evolution made stillness feel wrong. Psychologist John Eastwood at York University describes boredom as the uncomfortable feeling of wanting to be engaged in a satisfying activity, but being unable to find one. Notice what that leaves out. It isn't the absence of stimulation, it's a craving for engagement with nowhere to go. That's why scrolling doesn't fix it. It floods the craving without ever satisfying it. Your ancestors didn't have that shortcut. When restlessness hit, the only answer was the world around them. Exploration, tracking, building. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy has described how curiosity like this shaped early human cognition directly. Those who felt compelled to explore found new food and new safety. Those who didn't often didn't survive to pass that comfort on. Restlessness became wired in, generation after generation. So the discomfort you feel in a waiting room isn't a malfunction. It's 100,000 years of ancestors whispering the same message. Something out there needs your attention. But they're out there, and yours aren't the same. Theirs rewarded restlessness with real discovery. Yours rewards it with a notification, a copy of discovery dressed up to feel real without ever closing the loop the way finding food once did. In 2014, psychologist Timothy Wilson and colleagues at the University of Virginia left participants alone in a bare room with nothing to do but think. Then they were given a button that delivered a mild shock just for something to break the silence. Many participants, some who'd earlier said they'd pay to avoid the shock, chose to shock themselves rather than sit quietly with their own minds. People chose pain over stillness. That's not a quirk of willpower, that's your ancient alarm system, still fully armed, screaming that stillness is dangerous even in a room where nothing bad can happen. And this is exactly why boredom feels worse today than it likely did on the savannah. Your ancestors' environment answered the call. Yours interrupts it before it finishes ringing. How often do you let boredom actually run its course? A few seconds, and your thumb is already moving. You silence the craving before it becomes what it's really asking for. Focus. Researcher Sandy Mann at the University of Central Lancashire found something almost backwards. In her experiments, people deliberately given tedious, unstimulating tasks performed better afterward on creative thinking tests than people who weren't bored at all. Left alone instead of instantly medicated, boredom doesn't just push you toward stimulation, it pushes you toward invention. History backs this up. Long stretches of enforced stillness, quarantines, isolated winters have produced some of the most original thinking humans have ever managed, not because suffering builds character, because an unanswered itch to engage eventually turns inward and the mind starts inventing its own stimulation. Your ancestors sitting by a fire at night weren't just resting. Their restless minds were almost certainly wandering, connecting ideas a busy mind never has time to notice. You've replaced that fire with a screen that never runs out of kindling, so the ancient signal keeps firing, gets silenced, fires again hundreds of times a day. Like an alarm, no one lets finish ringing. Next time that itch shows up, try something almost radical, Let it sit for a moment before you reach for the escape hatch in your pocket, not because discomfort is virtuous, but because it's trying to tell you something your ancestors understood instinctively. It isn't asking to be entertained. It's asking you to engage with something that matters. You're standing in line. Nothing is happening. And for the first time in a while, you let that feeling stay exactly where it is.